Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Members of Parliament, participants, investors, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to everyone. Firstly, I would like to say thank you to the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka for this invitation to talk on Malaysia's experience in development. I hope what I say here will have some influence over the task that Sri Lanka has set for itself. These are very interesting times for Sri Lanka because it is accelerating the process of its development. And Malaysia too went through this process right from the very beginning. We became independent in 1957. Malaysia was not expected to develop and to grow. Instead, most people said that after independence, there would be turmoil. There would be turmoil because the population of Malaysia is made up of three major races, divided not only by race, but also by their religion, their culture, their language, and their economic achievement. These races were truly unequal. The biggest majority is the indigenous people, with 60% of the population, and the indigenous people were the poorest race in Malaysia. So it was assumed that upon independence, the indigenous people would rise and seize the wealth of these, and we had 4 million. Very shortly after that, having launched a Visit Malaysia year, and from then on the growth continued, and today we have about 26 million tourists a year coming to Malaysia. And that, of course, contributes much towards the income of the country, the people, and the government. So these are the things that we have done that with the intention of growing the country. We need to enrich the country. We were a relatively poor country at the time of independence. Per capita income was only $350 at that time, but today per capita income is about $12,000. So the growth was very, very good because of these deliberate efforts made to stimulate growth, to stimulate the economy. We also have a system of cooperation between government and private sector. We notice that Japan has been condemned as Japan Incorporated because the government seems to be working closely with the private sector. And it was said that this was bad, that the government should not work closely with the private sector. We thought otherwise. Why not? Because the private sector pays tax. And if we help them to make profits, they will pay more taxes. So we introduced Malaysia Incorporated. And in Malaysia Incorporated, the government machinery was tuned to help the private sector to be business friendly. Bureaucratic procedures were reduced to the minimum. We don't delay things. And because of that, more people were willing to invest in Malaysia because of this attitude of the bureaucrats towards the private sector. They were there to help. And the bureaucrats were told, your pay is being paid by those people. We collect taxes from those people and you benefit The more taxes we collect from them, the higher will be your pay. And the bureaucrats understood the benefit to them of expediting the work that they were doing. And this, again, contributed towards a faster growth for Malaysia. Also, of course, we were looking for models which we can copy so as to contribute to the growth of Malaysia. We noticed that the Japanese, who lost the war, were able to recover much faster than the victors in the last World War. The victors were Britain and America and some other countries, but the Germans and the Japanese lost the war. But we noticed that both the Germans and the Japanese who lost the war recovered and progressed much faster than the victors of the war. I'm against war. That's why I would like to advocate this idea that it's better to lose a war than to win a war. Then, of course, you will grow faster like the Japanese. Having noticed how the Japanese did so well, we decided that we should look east. We should look at Japan, Korea, China, Taiwan, and other places, which seems to be doing much better than Europe. Europe is old in many ways, and they have problems, but the East presents a much better model for us. So we decided to look east. We decided to send our students to Japan and Korea. Some of the workers were sent to Japan and Korea to learn Japanese work ethics, because we believe that the progress or the success or otherwise of a person or community or nation is dependent upon their work ethics. If they have good work ethics, then they will succeed and the country will prosper. So we send our workers and our students to Japan, and also some government officials were sent to Japan to study the Japanese, to find out how is it that they, having been destroyed by atom bombs and the like, were able to do much better within a short period of time. And indeed, we learned a lot from the Japanese, from the Koreans, because their work ethics is what contributed most to their rapid recovery. They have trade unions like other people, but it is interesting to see that trade unions, workers in the trade unions, go on strike after office hours. While they are working, they are not going to strike because they know their work contributes towards the development of their country. If they must strike, they must do so in their own leisure time. But generally, they don't strike that often. And because of that, Japanese, Korean goods are able to be produced at lower cost and to capture the market. As you know, after the advent of Japan and Korea and China, we don't see many European or American goods on the shelves anymore. That is because the Europeans and the Americans cannot compete in terms of price and quality with those goods coming from Japan and Korea and China. So we learned from the Japanese their work ethics, not very successfully because our people sometimes can be quite laid back, but there are many of them who have absorbed Japanese culture, and because of that they have done very well and they have contributed towards the growth of Malaysia. So there are very many things that we have done in order to grow the country. We believe that it's not a miracle. It is a very simple way of tackling problems, of overcoming obstacles, etc. Nothing very unique about what we have done. We believe that anybody can do what Malaysia has done, for which reason we even have a special provision for people who would like to study the way Malaysia developed, to see the policies, the strategies that were used, the planning, so that they too can achieve what Malaysia has achieved today. Now, planning is another very important contribution towards the development of Malaysia. As I said, we adopted a 5-year plan at the very beginning. Over time, we began to look further ahead. And in 1990, we decided that we should look over a period of 30 years, not 5 years, but 30 years, 6 5-year plans. And we had to identify the target. You have to know where you are going. If you don't know where you are going, you may be going backwards thinking you are going forwards. So we decided that by the year 2020, we should become a fully developed country. So that is the target. And every plan, every person, every Malaysian knows about this plan. And they know that by working hard, by doing business well, by acquiring knowledge, skills, they would be contributing towards achieving this target of becoming a fully developed country by the year 2020. I suppose those of you who have been trained as a doctor, as I was trained as a doctor, or an ophthalmologist, will know that 2020 means perfect vision. We wanted a perfect vision of our future. So by the year 2020, hopefully we will achieve that target. Maybe not fully, but I think we will be fairly near that. It's not about per capita income. Per capita income doesn't determine the wealth of people. If you go by per capita income, then I think we should take Saudi Arabia as our model, because they have the highest per capita income. But Saudi Arabia is not considered as a developed country. It is because they don't have so many things that developed countries have. So we go by other definitions of a developed country. Namely, we should be very well industrialized, our people should be very well educated, hopefully with 1 or 2 Nobel laureates, and we should have the capacity to do research, development, invent things, etc., just like any other developed country. So all these things are being done and continuing to be done, and I feel certain that we would be able to achieve our target. Even today, Malaysia is considered as a, middle-income country, and it's not bad to be a middle-income country. One thing that people don't refer to or take into consideration when looking at the performance, financial performance of the country, is that it is the purchasing power of the people that is important, not the per capita income. If you have a devalued currency, you can be a millionaire, but that million units that you have will not buy you much. But Malaysia's strategy is to have a low per capita income, but high purchasing power. And today, we can say that 3 Malaysian ringgit, the currency unit is the ringgit, 3 Malaysian ringgit is equivalent to $1. But the cost of living in Malaysia is so low that 1 Malaysian ringgit in Malaysia can purchase as much as $1 in the US. So even though the US may have a per capita income of $46,000, but their purchasing power is not that much. Whereas we have a per capita income of about $12,000, the purchasing power is more like $24,000 because the cost of living in Malaysia is very low. So in order to ensure that a country grows, one has to look at almost every aspect of the economy and the lives of the people. We care for the people. We want them to have a good life. But in order to have a good life, they must work hard, they must be better educated, they must be competitive, they must be able to achieve something in life which will make them stand as tall as or sit as low as other people in other developed countries in the world. I thank you.